Urvi and Siddhant, please start.
Okay, ma'am. In the words of David Bales, the difference between art and craft lies not in the tools that you use in your hands, but in the mental set that guides them. For the artisan, craft is an end in itself. For you, the artist, craft is the vehicle for expressing your vision. Craft is the visible edge of art. With a spring in my step, anticipation in my heart, and alert to my heart. A warm welcome is never incomplete without warm words. It is with great pleasure that we welcome you all to this forum. Our endeavors have been to ensure that you feel at home. We welcome the exalted gathering, honorable guests, teachers, and my dear fellow students.
With the purpose of sharing artistic ideas and creating a heady melange of creative thoughts, Khaitan Public School Ghaziabad is organizing Kala Parv, the festival of life, where art is celebrated for art's sake. Do you know, Siddhant? A report by the Americans for the Art states that young people who participate regularly in the arts 3 hours a day on 3 days each week through one full year are 4 times more likely to be recognized for academic achievement, to participate in a math and science fair, or to win an award writing an essay or poem than children who do not participate.
Is that so?
Yes, and also a study of Missouri public schools in 2010 found that greater arts education led to fewer disciplinary infractions and higher attendance, graduation rates, and test scores.
This year has been extremely challenging for all of us. Like all other events for this year, we are going to have one more remarkable event online, Kala Parv, an exhibition of innate endowments and a platform for prolific exchange of artistic ingenuity and creative prowess. It is a unique event where connoisseurs from the field of art and craft will come together from different schools to celebrate art for art's sake. The week, the week-long event festival is a cornucopia of art expressed in mediums, visual and culinary, using the faculties of head, heart, hand, and health. Art, in all its myriad forms, is celebrated and displayed through a collaboration of talent from Khaitan and other like-minded schools. Competition is not a part of art education, thus no event is competitive. Kala Parv is a festival of art, a celebration of art.
Nai Talim, promoted by Mahatma Gandhi, is a principle which states that knowledge and work are not separate. The crux of Nai Talim lies in overcoming distinctions between learning and teaching, knowledge and work. Taking inspiration from the timeless Gandhian philosophy of Nai Talim and its relevance to the current education system, we promote interdisciplinary education for an inclusive and sustainable future and experiential learning using the faculties of the head, heart, hand, and health.
And now, I would like to introduce our audience to our guest for the evening, Mr. Jeffrey Newell. Mr. Newell has been working in the admissions office for the past 16 years and currently serves as the Director of Admissions at Montserrat College of Art. Outside of his work, he is the Vice President on the Board of Trustees at Rocky Neck Colony in Gloucester, Massachusetts, which is the oldest art colony in America. Mr. Newell enjoys working with and empowering students to reach their full potential through the application process. Mr. Newell is happy to help students discover whether Montserrat College of Art is the right fit school and is eager to help them throughout the admission process.
Thank you so much for your introduction. And it's such an honor to be here this morning in America or this evening in India to share a little bit about the theme of your event, really thinking about the future of the arts, design, and technology. Um, as you mentioned, I'm Jeffrey Newell. I'm the Director of Admissions at Montserrat College of Art. I'm also the Vice President of the Board of Trustees at the Rocky Neck Art Colony. And then through these two arts organizations, I've developed many connections with many artists, many designers, and many industry leaders in America in terms of helping students in my job prepare their lives for creative endeavors. So I have a presentation I'd like to share with you today. It's quite visual, so I hope it inspires all of you, the younger artists on our Zoom session this morning or this evening for your own practice. And it was great to hear that you really have an interdisciplinary approach to your art. And that is something that where in my practice and in the work I do, art is incredibly interdisciplinary. And it's not just about the craft, but it's about the concept as well. So I hope that some of these themes will be relevant as we go through the presentation. So on behalf of Montserrat, I appreciate and I thank the Katan School for inviting me this morning. And I look forward to giving you this presentation and having a conversation with anyone who's interested to learn more about art and design careers. And with that, I will share my screen and we'll get started. I trust everyone can see the screen with the presentation. Yep, great, thank you. Okay, so there are many different options to study art and design in America. And Montserrat is a small private college north of Boston, Massachusetts, about 30 minutes north, and we're about a couple blocks from the Atlantic Ocean. And I think if you're pursuing an art and design career, going to an art college is certainly a really valuable experience that you'll have, where you'll make a lot of connections, you'll fine tune your craft, and you'll develop personal concepts within your work that will make your artwork, I think, empowering and impactful. I'm going to relate some of the topics with our college today because it's the most relatable thing that I can share. But I want to encourage you all to know that there are so many options out there for studying art and design. And I do hope that you decide to study in the United States. I think it's on sort of the cusp of creativity. So I hope that this is an inspiration for you all. So under the 4-year program, we offer a Bachelor of Fine Arts degree. And this is really the sort of the foundation of your art career as you go through your college experience. Specifically, we'll talk a little bit about the programs that we offer, which are animation and interactive media, illustration, graphic design, photography, film and video, painting, printmaking, sculpture, book arts, interdisciplinary arts. So that theme is already coming up again. And then we also have art education as well. And we have minors that students can focus in art history, art education, creative writing, curatorial studies, and entrepreneurship in the arts. And we'll touch a little bit on that, but not specifically each topic. So the way that this is structured is that I'm going to show you a couple of slides from all the programs that we offer, so you can get a sense of what the Bachelor of Fine Art degree level students are creating. And then from there, we'll talk a little bit more about the future after you graduate. I'm going to start with a short animation reel of student work from this past year. And I hope that you take note of all the different styles of animation that our students have been focusing on. Whoops, this didn't happen yesterday. There we go. So through the animation, I hope that you notice that we offer, and there are so many opportunities for all animators who are interested in animation or interactive media, but we have 2D animation, 3D animation, 4D animation, stop motion animation. So the variety of different ways to approach animation is very vast. And I think that at our college, you will be able to explore many of those different programs, all industry standard, and work with faculty who are professionals in the field, as well as work with professional artists in the field outside of the college that you choose. Illustration is also quite a popular concentration in the American schools for art and design students. Illustration can be, really could be sequential art, graphic novels, it could be editorial work, poster design. Illustration is really everywhere in all of our lives and our cultures. And it's something that you might want to just be aware of as you're going to a restaurant and looking at a menu, reading a magazine or a book. There are certainly illustrations that are influencing us, whether we know it or not, in all of our daily lives. So here are a few examples of some illustrations from the students this past year. Graphic design, of course, this is an applied art. Graphic design is another opportunity where there is design in all of our lives, from a logo on a t-shirt we might wear to the food in our refrigerator. I mean, certainly when you look at a can of Coca-Cola, it's very incredibly graphic and sort of well-known brand. So graphic design really does look at the visual communication of brand and identity. And then again, using the industry standard tools in our computer labs to understand poster design, logo design, web design, and the like. So here are a couple of examples of graphic design work that has been produced over this past year. With photography, video, and film, again, a very popular environment to be in our country. Photography is something that is certainly utilized in again, all of our daily lives. From our cell phones or our smartphones, we have a built-in camera that can capture moments, any given moment that we are, existing or awake. And video and film certainly are really strong programs as well to consider. As you probably are aware, we have quite a large film industry in the United States. Some major movies have been filmed just locally, even in the town where I'm sitting right now. I'm sure that you've heard of a couple of big films that were filmed in this area. There's actually a film being filmed in Boston, just 30 minutes south of us, that is starring stars such as Leonardo DiCaprio, which might be a familiar name for many of you. So there's definitely quite a big career in the film industry. I do have a family member who does a lot of producing for local commercials in New York City, and has worked on big shows such as Saturday Night Live, which is a sketch comedy show for adults on Saturday night. So there's been a lot of success that's close to me that I can relate to in this particular industry as well. So here are a couple of examples of some photography work that our students have done over this past year. With photography, we do have a shooting studio where you can do work such as the two images on your left and on your right, where you have a seamless backdrop. You're working with the strobe lights. You're kind of working in a controlled environment. But we also do documentary photography as well. So there's a lot of opportunities for photographers to be in the world and capturing moments, whether it's for newspapers or magazines, for editorial pieces. But here are a couple of images from students over this past year. And now painting. Painting is more of a fine art, so something that might be a little bit more close to your heart and more close to your sort of your thoughts, maybe more personal to you. Painting and drawing are certainly popular environments at our college, and quite a staple or a standard at many art colleges in our country. Here are a couple of examples of some freshman work who really that first year program. You're learning, it's called a foundation year program, and you're learning a lot of sort of the fine tuning your basic skills before you start to work more on the conceptual side of your artwork. So understanding value and color and composition, these are elements of and principles of design that are incredibly important that apply to all disciplines. But of course, in your foundation year, you're doing this more in a fine art form. And here are a couple of upper level painting student pieces, a self-portrait, and then figures in an interior on the other side of the screen. Printmaking, it's a very sort of a good utility where you can create screen printing, etching, lithography, relief printmaking, monoprinting, that really runs the gamut. So I'm going to share with you a couple of more of fine art-based prints, but printmaking is something, again, like many of these products or areas that to focus on are really part of our everyday lives. Graphic designers might use screen printing to create clothing or apparel. So you can see that the flag that is hanging, the black flag, has a white ink screen print on it, or it could also be very fine art and used with mixed media as well. So the pieces on the other side that are stacked look like they have some paper making and some printing and some sewing and some a little bit more kind of a craft. And really at Montserrat and at many schools, there is a very interdisciplinary approach. So you might be working in a graphic design lab to create some images that maybe then you'll want to go and print. So we really encourage the crossover within each department versus having someone who says, I want to go to a college and I want to study graphic design. That student will be exposed to so many more elements of art and design and have a more well-rounded education versus having one hard skill that will then sort of, you know, be kind of a little less encompassing for career opportunities in the future. A couple more pieces to share in printmaking. And then sculpture is another department that we offer. Sculpture is really working anywhere in 3D. The materials that students use can certainly be mixed media. It looks like we have here some mixed media, some welding, some plaster casting. We also do stone carving, ceramics as well. Woodworking is certainly a big part of our facility in our sculpture department. So here are just a couple of 3D pieces from our students from this past year. Some bronze casting. And I'll talk a little bit more further later, but we also have 3D printers that are on our campus that are utilized among all students. However, it is also working in 3 dimensions. Now, this is a pretty peculiar program that we offer. It's a little more specialized. Not many colleges offer this, but it's called Book Arts. So at our college, we have a book arts program, which is really designed about how to, the conception of a book to the finished stages. So what the conception of the book could be is your theme. Maybe it's a short story that you've created. It could be a book of just images. So you learn how to print through our letterpress shop, as well as book binding. And of course, being still utilizing all the different facilities throughout the college. So here are a couple of other examples of some books with different folds and different styles and different ways to bind a book. And then, of course, interdisciplinary arts. It's, I think, such a versatile area to focus in. It's what I focused in when I was a student here. When I graduated from Montserrat, my original goal was to be an art educator, an art teacher. And so I wanted to learn everything. I wanted to know how to do printmaking, how to work in 3 dimensions, how to understand color and design and paint and draw. So maybe I couldn't decide, so I did a little bit of everything with the idea and the notion of being in a classroom and teaching a group of students, such as many of you on the call. But then my trajectory ended up going into the admissions world, which is a little bit more marketing and recruitment, but also very much teaching. As today, I feel that I'm sort of in the teacher role, helping students become inspired and understand what options are for art and design students in the future. So within interdisciplinary, it can certainly be a combination of the different facilities that are offered at a college. But of course, it also is a conceptual based program where you want to be consistent with your themes or your ideas. I think that in our culture, the concept tends to be maybe a little bit more of the story behind an art piece versus just the craft, although the craft is certainly an important thing. You want something to be made in a you know, a strong and well thought and constructed manner. But if there's not a lot of thought behind a piece or an object, then I think that you want to kind of create a strong statement for yourself as an artist and kind of give it your stamp of approval. So here are a couple of examples of students who are doing just a few different varieties of work, whether it's installation pieces that are in a gallery setting that's a combination of sculpture and printmaking. And then I had this little animal here that a student last year embroidered. We don't have an area of interest for just embroidery, but this is a student who is incredibly interested in drawing through thread. And so this piece I thought was appropriate to share with you to help share that there is an interdisciplinary approach. I talked a little bit about the 3D printers when we spoke about sculpture. So here's one image of our digital fabrication lab. It's a little bigger than what you can see here. But this is a really exciting space. It's a freestanding building in between our main academic buildings. And what we have in this space are 3D printers. We have 3D printers that print both in plastic, which I think many of us are used to. But then we also have 3D printers that print in ceramic as well. I have a family member who does he's a mason, so he will reconstruct old buildings that need attention. And what he does is he will go to places like New York City or Boston or state capitals, important buildings in the country, and he restores them to their original facade on the outside. So what he does, he will take an old ornamental piece off of a building, he'll do a 3D scan of the piece to then create a mold, to then create a replica of the piece that needs to be replaced because it's damaged or older and crumbling. And he has been incredibly successful working with tools that artists would use. And however, he is not an artist. He's always asking me, who do you know that I can hire to help me with this? So he's an interesting person, but I think what he does is pretty inspiring, and it's great to see the work that he's been creating throughout my life. So that's just one example of how a 3D printer could be utilized in a profession. We also have vinyl cutters, and this is an open studio space. Not many classes are held in here because it is so interdisciplinary. We want all students to have access to this space, to understand this technology, and to really enjoy creating something that might not be done in a typical studio setting. At all colleges, you'll definitely see that there are many galleries on campus. And the galleries are incredibly important because this means that each college is showing artists who are outside of the college. So you're getting outside perspective on art making practice and process that you might not get in your specific studio concentration. So with each gallery, traditionally there's opportunities for students to meet these artists, to go to a lecture of their work, and they can share their story about where they went to college, what their inspirations are, what their media might be. And it's really inspiring to hear artists that you might see in a magazine or an art history book, and then to have them come to your campus and talk to you specifically about their work. When I was a student here, one memorable artist that came was actually a husband and wife team. Their names were Christo and Jean-Claude, and they were internationally renowned artists. If you Google them, or maybe some of you are familiar, but they did a lot of fabric wrapping of big important buildings throughout Europe. And one of their last projects was called the Gates Project, where they created this beautiful pathway through Central Park in New York City with bright saffron orange fabric that was hanging down. And they did it in the wintertime to help warm up the atmosphere in a cold, kind of dreary month in New York. And to hear them talk about that project and then to go to New York City and see that project after it was fully realized was really an incredible experience. So again, making those connections in the art world is incredibly important. And I think the gallery programs at all schools will really help inspire and help build those connections for your specific career. Here are a couple more examples of some visiting artists that came through our galleries over the last year. The top two pieces are, they're actually prints. These big wood cutouts that are standing up are carved wood to create sort of a plate, if you will, where the black is ink. And then when you ink that up, you put it down onto the paper, and then you have a press and you can create these large scale prints. So this gentleman came to us from the middle of the country, probably about a 4-hour plane ride away, and worked with our summer pre-college students and our Bachelor of Fine Arts degree students on working on these large scale prints. And he was quite incredible and very charismatic. And a few more options to show you in terms of some of the artists that have come through. Some of our galleries here are also open for specifically for our faculty to show their work and also our students to show their work. Many times colleges will make sure that each student will have a showcase of their work throughout their career at the college. It's oftentimes a graduation requirement as well. So there's a lot of networking opportunities that you are building as you're going through the Bachelor of Fine Arts degree program. A little bit about our campus culture. And again, we are fairly specific. There are so many different environments to consider when you're looking at an art and design college. But Montserrat, we are small by design. We want to be small for personal attention. We feel that that is really important for the artists to have space and attention from their professional faculty to grow and learn. So we have about 400 students, believe it or not, 400. I go to high schools who have 400 students in their senior class, and then they wonder, wow, I can go to a school that there's only 400 students in. So it's quite a community-based kind of atmosphere, which is pretty unique. And again, a little bit about our location. If you see the top photos on either side, you can see the brick building. That's one of our main studio buildings. And just beyond that is the Atlantic Ocean. So it's about a 5-minute walk to go to the beach in the Atlantic Ocean, which is quite nice. Everything on our campus is kind of woven into a downtown environment. And it's pretty exciting to be in a vibrant downtown setting. And everything is within walking distance. There's no need for public transportation. Many colleges will have different ways to house students. We have apartment style housing. I think this is really kind of a real world living situation where you're living with other artists in an apartment where you're hosted by the college, but you have your own kitchens that you are cooking your meals in. You're having to understand budgeting your time and budgeting your money for cooking meals and sharing with your friends and your roommates. So it's not a typical dorm style, which is quite popular in the United States, where you're sharing a bedroom and then you're sharing a dining hall with everyone in that whole entire building. It's much more personal, and I think it's much more appropriate for creative people to live in more of a real world setting like this. So here are a couple of examples of what the apartments look like on our campus. And again, all of these are incredibly close to our academic buildings. If I walked around our campus, I could probably do the full loop in about 10 minutes, maybe 15. Couple more images of some of the houses that we have for students to live in. and a few more interior shots to show that we do have kitchens and bedrooms, living spaces, space to spread out, space to create, space to breathe, which is a nice feeling. It's more comfortable. So I wanted to talk about the senior year experience a little bit because I think it is important as you're preparing for the real world or your creative career that you have a strong seminar program. Many schools will have different seminars because there's such a variety of programs that are offered, and each seminar might be a little bit more catered to the needs of each program. So here we have a specific thesis project that animation and interactive media students will work on. And then there's the senior fine art studios that we're seeing here. So students who are interested in photography, sculpture, painting, drawing, printmaking, they have their own individual studio space when they're enrolled into the seminar program. So you're not just utilizing the studio spaces that we'll have for the labs, you also have your personal space to do your work and feel like you can make that space your own. And then there's a senior illustration program as well. And then if you're doing art education, there's a practicum that happens where you're doing your student teaching. So within the seminar classes, it's not just about creating your own body of work. That's a big portion of it, but it's also understanding sort of I guess, art history and kind of the content of themes in art and how it might apply to your work or how it might apply to your profession. And again, visiting artists will come through these studios and help with students. Always good to get outside perspective. And then at the end of the year, there's a big show for all of the seniors to share some of their work that they've created. And it's a big celebration right ahead of the commencement. A couple of images of some of the senior studio spaces. As you can see, everyone has a little bit of a different style. And I think that's pretty important. I think the individual style at an art college in America is definitely a common thing. As I mentioned, there's opportunities for students in the senior year to exhibit your work and really get a sense of what it is like to share your work in a gallery space and the preparation that takes place ahead of hanging your artwork, working with a group of other students, advertising your specific senior show, setting up an opening as well. So there's a lot of professional practice that is woven into this particular class. I'll talk a little bit about the application process when you're applying to an art college. So that was a little bit of the art college experience. Now I'm going to talk about how to get to an art college. And then my next part of the presentation is what happens after college. So the first part was probably the biggest chunk of information, and these pieces will be a little less detailed. So the application process is fairly unique for an art college. We, of course, there's an application form. We ask for high school transcripts. We ask for letters of recommendation. And then we ask for a college essay in terms of what it is that you want to achieve at an art college. The unique thing about applying to an art and design college is that many of us will ask about if you could submit a portfolio of artwork. And every school might have a little bit of a different request within the portfolio. At my college where I work, it's 12 to 15 pieces of your most recent and best work. And we'll talk a little bit about what recent and best and what kind of should be in that final portfolio. It should be work that is original to you. We frown upon students that are creating sort of replicas of other people's work. We want to see a student's skill set ability as well as conceptual ability. We like to see the more recent work within the last year or 2 years, because that's really going to showcase where you are in this moment of time as you apply in terms of your ability, skill set ability. And that gives us the confidence, hopefully, that you have the skill sets needed to be successful in our first year program. And then we do like to see work that's drawn from direct observation. And what that means is, here are a few examples. A self-portrait, so maybe not from a photograph, but from a mirror or from real life. So if I look around my office, I have boxes and papers and pens and a phone and all sorts of things that are perfect still lives that are right in front of me that I can create many drawings from at any given moment. So I don't think you have to always go and find the beautiful fruit bowl and the vase of flowers and the wine bottle, because those are important studies, but they don't really share sort of your personality. They're more exercises. So I would encourage you, when you are doing your drawings, to make it personal for yourself. What are the things in your life that are exciting to you? Maybe it's a friend or family member, maybe it's an animal, maybe it's a sculpture that you created, maybe it's your home, part of an environment that you're in. So it helps us get a sense of who the applicant is a little bit more. But these are a couple of examples of observation work. We like to see a variety of media as well. So it's always great if you're able to, if you have the experience in your school, and I know that your school has a really strong art program. So it's good to showcase some of the work that you've been able to create, whether it's large scale painting or working in 3D, or if you've done some technology work. It's nice to see a little bit of everything that you've been working on and what reflects your interests. Again, we want to see your original work. So if you're an illustrator, we don't want to see the same illustrations that we might see from another famous artist. We want to see your own creations. So try to keep that in mind. It's frowned upon quite a bit among the art colleges in America. One opportunity to help enhance your portfolio are summer programs. We do offer a summer pre-college program, and this is designed for students who are going into their junior year or their senior year of high school. So I think that would be standard 11 and 12 for Indian students. And basically what it is that it's a full test drive of what an art college experience is like. Instead of 4 years, it's only a few weeks, but you do get a sense of what the whole art college experience really is like. We have classes that are geared towards portfolio development. You're working with other students who are interested in going into an art and design college as well. You're living in our campus housing. It's in July, so the weather is quite warm here. At least it's quite warm for us. And then we have excursions to local museums, and we go into Boston for a day as well. And we have a lot of evening activities with visiting artists, or even just more fun socializing art-related activities for the students. So it's a pretty vibrant program. It's a lot of fun. And our students leave with a better sense of what to expect when they go into an art college setting. So we talked a little bit about the portfolio a few minutes ago. These are pieces that were created from seniors in high school in America last year who are now enrolled in our freshmen at Montserrat. So these are actual pieces from different portfolios that I curated for you to get a sense of what some of our students who are currently enrolled created in order to get into Montserrat. And you can see the skill set level will be a little bit different. Every high school has a different sort of a budget or a different approach to how they're teaching. So what we do is we look at the portfolio and see the potential and their areas of interest. And that's where we can help make a decision whether a student will be successful at Montserrat or not. The variety of work is quite big. We've seen paintings, we saw mixed media, we're seeing watercolor here, we're seeing pen and ink. So really the variety is quite important. It looks like there's a relief for a 3D piece on the bottom, using color, sharing illustration. There's a soft sculpture in this particular slide. So again, it's variety is the spice of life, right? We talked a little bit about embroidering, and I wanted to mention that we have a new student who is now a freshman, and she created a self-portrait through embroidery, which I thought was so clever. I thought, we always think of a drawing from life. We think of picking up a piece of charcoal or a pencil. And this student picked up some needle and thread and created this really amazing drawing using thread, which I thought was a great creative solution to an assignment. A couple more pieces to share before we talk about careers. All right. So as you know, and as you've sort of seen, a lot of the career professional practice is woven into the curriculum at the college, but we do have a career design studio specifically for students to access. And they have a model throughout the 4 years for students in order to help them become successful when they are professionals outside of school. So your freshman year is really about connecting and understanding your environment, sort of learning the key players at the college and learning your faculty and trying to develop your concepts and fine tune your skills. You're attending programs and getting your feet wet in terms of what direction you might want to take when you do start preparing for your career. Your sophomore year is when you explore. This is a year where you're starting to develop your own individual brand and sort of your own conceptual identity. We do have a career design studio for you to start accessing, and you're starting to do some research on the internship program, which is a requirement at our college for your junior year. This is a year where you choose your concentration. So your first year is that foundation year. You're taking a little bit of everything. Your second year, you're choosing more of a focus on what you're wanting to achieve. And then as you prepare for your internship, your junior year is your test year. This is when you say, I'm going to do X or Y or Z, and you go in, you dive in, and you give it a try. Um, Oftentimes, it's a great experience, but sometimes you might have an epiphany and say, I thought I wanted to do this, but actually this made me understand that this route is a little bit better for me. It happened to me. I thought I wanted to be an art educator, and then I started working in the admissions office, and I fell in love with that process. So it's required for everyone to have a credit-bearing internship. You do get credit for these experiences. It's an experiential learning opportunity. You're not going into someone's office and just folding letters and stuffing envelopes. You're actually working side by side with professionals in the field. You're developing relationships, people who could be references for you, or people who might be looking for job openings in the future, and they might hire you right out of your internship, which happens more often than not. And then your senior year is the year that you refine. You have all of this knowledge after the first 3 years. This is where you start to refine your materials, you build your identity, and you start to chart your path for your career. We're almost done. As I mentioned, the internship program is a requirement for our college. It's 120 working hours in a work environment. 100% of our students will graduate Montserrat with this particular experience under their belt, and over half receive job offers from these internship experiences. You can see a lot of the logos here, and these are just a small sampling. I think we've had over 600 internship sites. This is a small sampling of where our students have had internships in the past couple of years. And this past year, here are a few highlights of students in their internships. This particular student worked for a well-known pet photography studio. So working with these little animals, creating these really interesting portraits of them. And he was an intern and able to really work with clients, understand photography in a studio setting outside of Montserrat, and understand the professional piece behind the scenes of being a photographer. Michaela King, she works at a museum, which is really local to me. It's in the town that I live in. And she was a videographer intern at this particular museum, which is, it's a museum that has a lot of history artifacts. And so there's a lot of, a big library within this museum of local artists and art history. And so she was doing a lot of videography for this particular museum. Gervin Pineda Rodriguez is a graphic designer at Montserrat, and this is actually this year. He created an app with an app company, an app creation company called Turn Up App, and so he was a part of the sort of interactive media part of our curriculum, understanding the front end and the back end of creating an app for your smartphone. Brendan was an animator at Montserrat, and here he is in his internship working on stop motion animation figures that were used in a series of shorts, shorts meaning small movies, movie clips titled Big Sky. So he was doing the fabrication of these pieces for the animation. Catherine worked with a local well-known illustrator, was a studio intern, so understanding how this particular illustrator sells his work, creates client base, understands the work process on how they create their illustrations, probably understanding even things like how to negotiate when you're doing freelance work. So she was definitely going to go more on the track of a freelance career. Emma Gallant, you can see her name on the screenshot of the Zoom. Looks like her camera was turned off, but she was doing an animation internship at Theory Studios, which is more of a local animation house that's close to us in Beverly. The PBD Essex Museum is in Salem, Massachusetts. It's right next door to us. You could probably get there in about 5 minutes by car or by train. We're on the commuter rail as well. So Salem is the next stop down. The commuter rail also brings you right into Boston. So you have quite a bit of accessibility. No need to have a car here. But Rebecca Nagel, who's in this image, she's was an intern at the Peabody Essex Museum. I think Rebecca is doing a lot more of the curatorial studies and really interested in art history. So for her to have an opportunity to have full access to this museum and share the history and the topics behind different themes in their collection to outside audiences was such a gift for her. And here's a shot of her giving a speech or giving a talk about some of the artwork at the PBD Essex Museum. So those are some student internship profiles. The other pieces to the career department at our college is that we have a lot of engagement opportunities. We have an event every semester that we dub Mocktails, which is a social kind of networking event where you're out in a local restaurant working with a few either clients or professionals in terms of having conversations and loosening up and being able to sort of sell your product or sell your thoughts or sell your ideas and make connections with professionals in the field. It's a really great opportunity to sort of break out of your shell and get some of those social skills and build your confidence and how to share your work and your story. We bring a lot of alumni back who are doing so well outside of the college, and they come in and share their experience. When I was a student here, blah, blah, blah. And now I'm doing ... So there's a lot of really wonderful opportunities for our current students to engage with our alumni. We'll talk a little bit about graduate programs in a minute, but we do have a fair, a graduate college fair, where we have representatives from many graduate colleges come to our campus for our students to learn a little bit more about opportunities if they choose to continue their path on education. We do have recruiters come to recruit students to place them in jobs. So we have recruiter tables that are here throughout the academic year. Your senior year, we have professionals come in to review your portfolio. So when I review your portfolio as a senior in high school, there are professionals who will review your college portfolio to help you understand and direct you in terms of job placements for the future. And then there's so many more other opportunities, but these were just a few highlights. A couple of quick images here of the alumni panel through our sort of entrepreneurship. These are successful alumni who are business owners, and they came to talk about their business and sort of how they arrived at their business. All of their businesses are very successful and very creative. The Mocktails, that social networking event. So this is students here at a local restaurant talking with a couple of different agents in terms of who are looking to hire young graduates. So this is an opportunity where we put our students in front of these particular agents to help them build their careers. So just wanted to talk a little bit about the graduate school program. Alumni, it's not a requirement, of course, but alumni have pursued master's degrees. Sometimes it's right after they finish their degree here. They might go on to other schools. I highlighted a few that you probably are more familiar with. Columbia University, Harvard University, and Yale University. These are schools that some of our students have gone on to earn a master's degree in. But certainly there's many schools that are not on this list that students have also attended, but this is a snapshot. The Art Institute of Chicago in Chicago is a really great program. Lesley University, New York Academy of Art. So they all have different programs with different focuses, and they could be really great fits depending on your experience here. Many of the students who go on to graduate school feel incredibly prepared when they enroll at a graduate school from their experience here. Employment, alumni have launched creative careers, and this is where just a list of some of the areas or some of the industries that our students who graduated are currently in. Apple is a big one. When you say like a store name like Best Buy, they're not selling product. They're probably in their marketing team. Nickelodeon, I'm sure, is a big one that you probably are aware of. Puma, which is an important brand. We have Nicole Riley, who is a senior designer at Puma, which is local to where we're located. And so those are the careers. Before that, you have your internships. So like I mentioned earlier, we have 600 sites, over 600 sites where our students have gone in and had that professional experience while they're a student here. And here are a couple of different examples. Again, variety is huge. It could be animation, it could be advertising, it could be working in a sort of a TV studio. It could be working in a tattoo parlor for illustrators, working at art associations and galleries and museums. Really, the sky is the limit. When you have an art degree, you have such a variety of options for you and such flexibility for a career that is long lasting versus if you go into a very specific track like I don't know, you name it. That seems like a very linear path. With artists, you have more of a tree in terms of the opportunities that will present themselves. Here are a couple of careers and alumni that our alumni are up to. Again, Nicole Riley, we have Nigel Jones in the middle, who's interdisciplinary art, and he's doing mostly contemporary work and showing his work in museums. Jean Romero works at a local animation house in Boston. Bless Mazura, he is a really interesting person. He came to Montserrat from Zimbabwe. His first time ever flying on a plane was to come to college when he was 18. He landed in Boston, took a taxi cab to Montserrat, and was an incredible student here. What he does now is his career slightly turned into more of a fashion industry. And so he works in New York City and has a place more local to where I am now, where he does custom fashion design for women's wear. So he has a fashion line essentially, and also does custom made clothes for people. Jade Brewer is a photographer. She's a drone pilot, and she also works as a media producer at this local company. And so she does a lot of photography and video through drones, which are incredibly important. We've hired her several times to do campus shots for us. But of course, real estate, when you're selling real estate, people love to have the aerial shots that are very crisp and clean. And then Corey Wozniewski was a printmaker here and is now at the Hatch Show Print in Nashville, Tennessee, which is the most prestigious print house in the country. So thinking about what you can do with an art degree, here's just a snippet of what you can do. You could be a painter, sure, you can be a printmaker, you can be an artist, you can be creative, you can be an interactive designer, you can be a sculptor, you can work at film festivals, you can be an animator, you can be a design studio owner, an art educator, you can do work with sort of the movie industry, you can be a textile artist. the sky's the limit. And that's why I have a whole other page here to keep going. Videographer, you can be an illustrator, a book designer, a graphic artist, a book cover illustrator, a character development artist, an app designer, storyboard artist, virtual graphics designer. You could create websites. You can create typeface or fonts. So many options. So last 3 slides, I promise, and I hope I'm not going too long. These will be quick. I wanted to highlight 3 of our faculty. We have professional faculty at our college, as all colleges do. And I wanted to introduce you to Mark Hoffman here, who's an illustrator. He's well published. He publishes children's book illustrations for books. They're incredibly funny, and he's got a very clever way of creating work. And he's really a dynamic educator as well. Students love Mark Hoffman. Masako Kamiya, she is from Japan. She's a graduate of Montserrat, went on to get her master's elsewhere and came back to teach. And she's a practicing painter, and her work has been shown in major galleries, especially in Boston, for quite some time. And she's been in a lot of very prestigious art magazines and art articles, which I list here. And again, she's got a very specific style, and people love her work, and she sells her work for quite a lot of money. And then Martha Buskirk. So at an art college, you have your studio classes, but you also have your liberal art classes. And Martha is a art historian. She is incredibly talented. She is a well-published author of art criticism books, and has also earned her PhD in art history. So she's incredibly bright, smart, and talented, and great resource for our students. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Maybe I went on a little too long, but I'm just, again, so honored, and what a pleasure to share with you, hopefully some inspiration in terms of what your creative careers could look like in the future.
Thank you. So,
Urvi.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much for clearing our doubts about making a career in the field of art and making it easier for the students to follow their dreams. Next, we have a panel discussion where the students would be asking questions from our guest speakers related to art and culture.
Yeah, students who are in panel, you can ask your questions related to the topic. Yeah, actually,
Students,
there
you
are
can raise
3.
your hands to ask the questions.
Yeah, the way you have described, you have not left any stone unturned. So I think,
Yeah.
yeah. Anyone? Panelist.
You can ask any
Uh,
questions. Any questions.
yes, are there things that we can do to prepare ourselves better to enroll into an art college?
So I will repeat that just to make sure I heard that correctly. Are there things that you can do to help better prepare yourself for an art college? Is that correct?
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right, sure. Yeah. Well, when we were looking at that presentation a few minutes ago, I think the biggest thing was developing your portfolio. The portfolio is not just an indicator in terms of getting your acceptance to a college, but it also is an indicator for merit-based scholarships. So it is something that is highly looked at and I wouldn't say scrutinized, but certainly we want to make sure that students who are going to add value to the class are going to get strong scholarships. And also we want to make sure that students are not going to go into a college and not feel prepared enough. So it's a balance between, will you do well? Will you be a member, a strong member and a strong leader among our student body? and I'm sure all of you here will be, but also the Merit Scholarship is big. So that is an important thing to consider. The other thing is the confidence that you will have. If you're planning to study at an art and design college in a different country, there's a whole other aspect of being away from your home and your environment and sort of your comfort, the comforts of your home. So if you have the opportunity to travel or to visit, I think that will help make that transition to a different university outside of India a little less daunting. Does that help you answer your question?
I think it does, sir. Well, there's another question in the chat box, which is coming from Vidhi, one of our students. She's asking, sir, who was your inspiration or role model, and why did you choose this field?
Wow, you're putting me on the spot now. When I talk to groups of people, I talk about a story that happened when I was in high school. So when I was your age, I was in an art class a little bit late in my high school career, and I thought I had a sort of a spark that said, I need to go to an art college. This is my calling. So my art teacher at the time was incredibly generous and incredibly thoughtful to help me prepare my artwork and help me understand what the art college experience would be like. So she really pushed me hard, and within a year, I was able to apply to several colleges and have several opportunities presented to me. And then it came down to me finding the right fit college for me. And that's where I chose this particular college. But there are such a variety out there that there's right fit colleges for really everyone. When I came to Montserrat, my next inspiration was my foundation drawing teacher. And she was someone who I had classes with throughout the time that I was a student here. And I talked a little bit about being on the board, the vice president of the board of trustees at the art colony. And she is also a member of the board. And she and I now collaborate as professionals, where before she was my mentor and I was her mentee. And now we are on the same sort of the same plane. She's an incredible artist, has her PhD from Harvard, and just a really wonderful person. So yeah, I try to surround myself with good people and inspiring people.
Thank you, sir. I do have a question. May I?
Of course.
Sir, I'm a visual art facilitator here in Khaitan only. So I was just, I wanted to ask you one thing about, what are the points a teacher or a facilitator should stress upon to prepare a student to be eligible enough to be able to take admissions in institutions like yours? So how do we prepare the students? What are the points we should, emphasize more and more and more?
Yes. The biggest point that you'll hear from art colleges from all over is working from direct observation. And I'm happy to have another presentation with your class and give you examples of a more robust presentation about that specific topic. Direct observation doesn't have to be working with a pencil on paper. It can be painting, it can be embroidering, it can be mixed media. But the hope is, because of the foundation year program at American institutions, it really is an important skill set for students to have a strong understanding of, because it relates to all the different topics. So understanding color, understanding form, understanding spatial relationships, right? So if you have a still life and it's an apple, that apple could be drawn and look like a photograph. But if it's on, a white piece of paper in the middle and there's no spatial elements, then it feels like it could be anywhere. It could be on the moon, it could be on the floor, it could be on a table. So it's really understanding composition and the spatial relationships, front to back, left to right, side to side. And that helps make a much more dynamic and exciting drawing or painting or whatever it is. So, but yeah, I'm happy to share more examples of that when there's more time. But that's a great
Thank you,
question.
sir. That was helpful. Thank you.
Sir, can
Yeah,
I ask a question?
of course.
Yeah. Sir, my question is, as an Indian, what are the different exams that we need to clear to get admission into your universities? Are there any specific exams that we need to clear to get the admission?
The only special exam, and this is also something that we will work with each student on a case-by-case basis, would just be the English as a second language exam, and that could be a TOEFL is probably the more popular one. But honestly, as I've given presentations to so many of Indian students, again, it goes back to us wanting to make sure that you're confident and and able to comprehend what's going on in the classroom for your own success. So the exam shouldn't really be looked at as a barrier. It's really more for us to have that confidence in your ability to succeed. But there are moments where we will waive that exam if we have conversations with students and we feel that the English language proficiency is strong, or if students are taking classes in an English-speaking school. And I think all of you here are incredibly proficient. So I wouldn't worry about that so much, but I put that in there just because there could be an opportunity where we might want to see a little bit more, just to make sure we're all on the same page. As you can see, morning has happened here in America. The sun is blazing in my window. Should I keep looking through the chat with questions, or are there? Raju, I think you're on mute.
Yeah, Jeffrey, you can pick up. There are very interesting questions are coming out. So you
Great.
can pick up directly from there also. It's up to you.
Yeah, I'll keep going. What do you think of this?
How to motivate you?
I am trying to make sure there's so many questions. I hope I get them all. What do you think why should art be an important part of our lives? That's a pretty big question. I think, art is everywhere. And I think in the opening remarks from the students, I wrote it down, the festival of life where art is created for art's sake. And sometimes that's all it is. It's just for art's sake. It doesn't always have to be for some big company or some big exciting program. Sometimes it's just because that's who you are, and that's part of the fabric of your being as being a creative thinker and a visual learner. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's a lot of career opportunities in art and design, but I liked that you started with art for art's sake, because it simplifies the pressure of having to be an artist.
Yeah,
Just be
yeah,
creative.
you absolutely, Jeffrey, and that is the philosophy which we follow in Atelier in KPS with the art department, and this program is based on this philosophy only, that art for art's sake and art for life.
It's a beautiful statement. No, and I'm going to share that with my president later today when I meet with him, because I think it's such a poignant message to share, and it's a philosophy that we have here quite a bit as well. So I'm glad I read that question next,
Yeah.
but I'll keep going. How do you motivate yourself when your work was rejected? These are great questions. There's no growth in anything if you can't realize failure, and you can't always nobody can always get a gold star on your chest, or you can't always win the same game every time. So when you are rejected, you learn from that moment, and that happens in life
Exactly.
in so many different realms, right? Maybe you wanted to get a cool job down the street, and they hired someone else ahead of you, and that really bums you out. But there's, I have sort of a philosophy that things happen for a reason, right? Like the
Very
universe figures it all out for us. So and there's learning moments in that. So if your art is rejected from a museum show or a special gallery show, that's happened to me. You just say, oh, you know what, let me figure out, maybe maybe this particular show was not the appropriate time, or maybe it wasn't the right thing that they were looking for. It doesn't mean it's bad. It just means that the timing might not be right, or maybe there are things to go back and work on and realize. At an art college, there's a lot of critique that happens in your classroom environment. So you will be talking about your work and sharing your work with your peers and getting faculty critique, and offering your critique on your peers and receiving critique on your peers. And it breaks down so many barriers. You all learn from each other, and you're able to really try to push yourself to be the best that you can be. And we're all lifelong learners, so we'll always keep on learning and growing and failing and repeating and growing some more. So, but that's a great question. I hope that's not too philosophical.
Very true.
There's a
Uh,
question that says that I told you guys about multiple options of careers. How should we choose our career? Yeah, I think you will discover over time the fields based on your interest. Things tend to click in college, and things will bubble up, and the focus becomes a little bit more, and then the motivation becomes a little bit more kind of harder or faster, and then you start the drive to really to go into that career. So it's a good question. I think you will discover that through a series of exercises with your faculty, through a series of experiences with professionals in the field. And the hope is that you will have several different careers, creative careers, not just one path, but keep your options open. So yeah, I think at the end of your career, you want to look back at the story that you created in your life, in your creative career, and that will really give you a sense of your accomplishments. What's
so
one? Oh, yep, go
uh,
ahead.
there is one question from Mr. Anupam Basu. He is asking that right now he is 40 years of age, and he wants to know, is there any opportunity for practice-based research in visual art disciplines? And more to this, can he take this practice now also at this age?
Absolutely. Yep. You're never too young to go to college. We have I shared a slide of one of our students at one of the museums talking about the curatorial studies, and she is someone who had a very different career. She came to Montserrat from being a professional judge for the United States Skating Association. So she was a judge that would help train Olympians who are figure skaters. And she moved to this area with her husband. She is older than 40, and she wanted to dive into what her passion was that she always knew was there. And she's here, and she's doing amazing stuff. So never too early to go in. In terms of the specific program that you mentioned, it seems like it was more art research. And there's a lot of different areas out there for research and study and history and art history. And so so certainly it's a great field to be in. All right,
There's
keep
another,
going.
yeah, important, interesting question. What is the most important aspects of an artist?
Ooh.
Apurva Roy.
The most important aspects of an artist. You know, I think that this could be a question that you would get, depending who you ask, you might get several different answers. But I think it comes down to the story that one tells. So, you know, I think the story makes up the character and the personality in someone, and I think that strikes the interest in the art, the story behind the piece. So my feeling is, a story could be literal. It could be a literal story, like a children's book story, and there's going to be some self-reflective content that probably will arise in that story. Or it could be, you know, a story that you were doing a painting and your cat walked across it when it was wet, and you incorporated that into the piece. And it wasn't what you were expecting, and you were probably pretty upset at the time, but you made it work. And that's a story that people are going to remember. So I think the most important part of being an artist is just being aware and being open, and you will see things a little bit differently than your friends who are going into you know, business or engineering. They're going to have a different sort of way that their brain is trained versus an artist. I think you're going to see the world a little bit differently, a little bit more larger. So I would say the biggest thing about the identity of an artist is noticing that they are aware more so. Are there other questions? I maybe Raju, do you want to choose some for me?
Yeah,
I
you
don't
can
want.
choose. You can choose. You can choose.
Okay.
Yeah.
How do we give time to art with academics?
Yeah, that is also very important. Yeah.
That's a very important question. How do you give time to art in your profession, right? I'm sure that's a great question to ask your teachers, how they balance their personal practice with their professional careers. I think people treat it like their second job. If it's your personal practice, I have a staff member that I supervise, and he lives one town over, and more close to the office where we work. He has a studio space in a building that has a lot of different artist studio spaces. And he goes there after work every night, and he's there for 4 or 5 hours. And some days he might probably do very minimal work, and other days he creates a lot of work, like a maniac. And I think it's just building that time into your schedule, just like we build time into drink coffee in the morning or to go for a walk in the afternoon. Like, you just make it part of your routine. And some days are productive, and some days are more kind of maybe in retrospective, like you're thinking more or looking at your work. And some days are more action based. So that would be my tip. You're not going to always be inspired to make art, but if you keep at it, it's like you're working out, like you're building your muscles for being creative. Let's see.
This is also interesting.
I have one question.
Yeah, sure.
See, I am not artist. I cannot even draw a human figure on paper. But I
Yeah.
have this question since many years. Like through my question, maybe with the parents watching you and hearing you, they will get a message. Like there is a general philosophy of parents. They do not promote their children at the early age in school to take up art because they are insecure about their financial stability in later in life, because it many of the people, they go into that business so that financial stability can come, so they do not promote children for taking arts as their careers. So do you
Right.
want to give some message to these parents?
Sure. Yeah, this is a question I answer every day. It is not just with parents who live in India. I think it's parents around the world who have this concern about the practicality of being an artist. And I think the sort of the theme is that there's two types of I guess currency, right? There's happiness, and then there's currency, dollars or money. And then there's a combination of both. So you have to figure that out a little bit. I would say, would it be worth it if you were 85 years old and you had all the money that you could ever need for forever, but you worked at a place for 45 years and you did not like it, and you had a hard time understanding what inspired you, and you lost that spark and that curiosity about the world? I think that shows me that that person is bankrupt in one area of their life, and while their bank account is full, there's a lack of happiness there. On the other side, you will be, if you don't have any money, you will probably also be unhappy because you're hungry, you're seeking shelter. But in today's society, in 2021, there are more opportunities for creative careers and professionals that I think people are aware of. I think when we have children who are young and we want to create an environment for them to be successful in a career, we tend to think that artists are painters. And we look back at different artists and we see that they struggled, and now we look at their work in a museum and we're fascinated by them. But during their time of being alive, a couple hundred years ago, we sort of feel bad for them that they had all of this passion and then they had nothing to show for it. But now, after death, they have such an incredible following. They're more famous than they would ever know. So we have to make sure that we combine the two. And in being in a creative career, you can go on a very kind of a path that is very much hard skill based, right? If you're learning computer programs to be an animator, and you're going to animate specific things for Hollywood, that's great if that's what your passion is. Or you could have a combination of hard skills and soft skills, which I think a lot of art colleges teach. So you have that flexibility and the sort of flexibility to move and to pivot when things happen. I think if we just even look back at this past year with the coronavirus, and I hate even talking about it because I think we're all so sick of it, but we had to be incredibly creative and flexible with how we approached our daily lives, how we approached our work. And I feel that we did it at our college with ease because we were able to really think outside the box, right? So how do we get students to visit our campus if we're shut down? Well, within a couple of days, we had a virtual tour that we were setting up to give to families all over the world. And it happened just like that. And we never would have thought to do that if we weren't pushed. And because we were pushed, we were able to have the wherewithal to see and to pivot and create this really exciting experience. And that's just one example of a million that we had to do internally here. But I think because it was done through a creative process, we were able to do it quickly and really well, and not have like a moment of panic. So I want to say everyone who graduates from art college will be successful and make all the money in the world, but it comes down to the individual and the connections that they make. And art colleges will prepare you to be successful, but it's up to the individual to go out and to be successful themselves. And that is in any career, in any field, throughout the universe.
Exactly.
That's the short answer.
Very, very nicely said. Yeah. Yeah, there's no guarantee in any career.
There's no guarantee.
Actually, people know more about the Van Gogh. They don't know about the Picasso or Daniel Hirst or David Hockney. They are the billionaires.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny. I love David Hockney's paintings, by the way, and his photography.
So do I.
Oh, good.
Great.
Shall I answer any more? I know it's getting late on
So
your end.
we can do one thing then. Some whatever questions we are having, maybe Raju sir or Sneha, you can forward us, and
Yes.
soon we will be conducting a student connect, like Jeffrey you suggested, like open house. I mean self portrait competition among the students. So we'll be interacting with all the students, as suggested by you. So anyway, we'll be interacting a lot now, starting February.
Definitely,
love it.
Sanjay.
Yeah.
I'm going to talk to my students, and
Sure.
whatever they have to ask, I'll just mail it to you.
Sure.
All right.
Sure.
Okay. Jeffrey?
Yeah.
In the words of Frida Kahlo, I don't paint dreams or nightmares, I paint my own reality. Moving ahead, before you We present before you the artistic expression Shakti Rupen of a budding Khetanian artist, Saloni Bharadwaj. She is highly sensitive towards the position of women in society. Her artwork mirrors in the true pictures of all aspects of womanhood she has tried to portray through her paintings, poetry, and dance movements.
वुमेन इज द मोस्ट ब्यूटीफुल क्रिएशन ऑफ गॉड। जब ये एक अच्छे संरक्षण में होती है तो ये सारे संसार को खुशियों से भर देती है, और जब यही एक गलत संरक्षण में होती है तो इसकी खुद की दुनिया बुझ जाती है।
नन्ही सी परियों को थोड़ा सा प्यार दो, छोटे उनके सपनों को सुंदर आकार दो, दुनिया में आने और जीने का अधिकार दो, छोटे उनके सपनों को सुंदर आकार दो। खामोश क्यों बैठी है ये दुनिया सारी, मत रोको नन्हे कदमों को, थोड़ा थोड़ा बढ़ जाने दो, कुछ दूर चलो संग इनके, किसी मंजिल तक जाने दो। सहयोग मिलेगा जब उनको तब अस्तित्व में आएगी, पुरुषों को मिला विरासत में वो खुद ही नाम कमाएगी।
Be the change you want to see in others. Not only a single person, but every soul on this planet should take an initiative to make a woman's world beautiful, as I have tried to do the same with my wishes.
In the words of John F. Kennedy, as we express our gratitude, we must never forget that the highest appreciation is not to utter words, but to live by them. I, on behalf of the Khatan family, would like to extend the vote of thanks to our esteemed guests and audience. We are extremely grateful for your presence and your enthusiasm in participating in Kala Parv. I would like to thank the visual art department of our school for putting up this incredible event and encouraging us to discover and nurture the artists within ourselves. To our distinguished guests, we are honored to have you present at this occasion and are deeply appreciative of your encouraging and motivating words. I thank you all and hope that this event leaves you with inspiration and full of wonder. Thank you all.
Thank you, Siddhant. Thank you,
Yeah.
Jeffrey. Thank you, all the students and participants.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Thank you
Sanjoy.
so much. Thank you.